The rain over the tundra fell in sheets, hissing against the burned metal husks that once served as transport crawlers. Lyra sat alone beside one, her uniform torn, her breath fogging in the frigid air. The mission had gone wrong again. The research convoy was supposed to chart migration routes of the Felidons, a predator species the colonies feared. But their escort had been ambushed, communications cut, and now only she remained, an injured xenobiologist with a single flare and a rapidly cooling body. The sky flickered with auroras, beautiful, dangerous. Radiation bands twisted above, rippling like wounded light. Her survival pack blinked a dull orange, temperature warning. She pulled her coat tighter. That was when she heard the low, almost plaintive sound, half growl, half whimper, from behind the wreckage. She froze. The Felidons. They hunted in pairs, sometimes trios. Lyra's hand instinctively reached for the flare gun, but she didn't fire. The sound wasn't close enough for a charge. It was softer. Curious. She waited, heart pounding, as two shapes emerged through the mist. Small. Quadrupedal. Their scales shimmered faintly with bioluminescent veins. Cubs. They were predator young, maybe 2 weeks old. And alone. Lyra swallowed, her scientist's mind running through facts. Cubs without parents rarely survived the cold. Their mother might have been killed during the ambush. That meant they were scared, starving, and still lethal if startled. She didn't move. The cubs, sniffling, padded closer. One sniffed her boot. The other growled weakly at her coat, then collapsed from exhaustion. The rain turned to sleet. Against every survival protocol, Lyra shifted, opening her thermal coat slightly. The cubs blinked at the motion, uncertain. Then, drawn by warmth, they crept forward and slipped under the heavy fabric. One nestled near her ribs, the other curled near her arm. Lyra's muscles trembled, not from fear but from restraint. She didn't move as their tiny claws pricked her skin through the cloth. Minutes passed, then an hour. The sound of their breathing slowed, deepened. They had fallen asleep. By morning, the storm had broken. Pale sunlight spilled across the wreckage. Lyra was stiff, cold, but alive. So were the cubs. They stirred when she shifted, blinking up at her with eyes like fractured sapphires. She smiled faintly. "Guess we're stuck together now," she murmured. Her communicator was dead. The convoy's beacon had been destroyed. The only chance of rescue lay 20 kilometers east, where a crashed drone's last transmission originated. Carrying both cubs would slow her, but leaving them would be a death sentence, for them or for anyone who found them hungry. Lyra decided in that quiet, frost-bitten dawn, she wouldn't leave them. She fashioned a sling from a thermal tarp, tucking the cubs inside. As she trekked east across the tundra, they whimpered softly, occasionally poking their heads out. When one tried gnawing on her glove, she laughed, a sound that startled even herself. The creature's warmth against her side kept her moving when the wind numbed her face. Hours turned to days. On the second night, she found a collapsed relay tower and camped inside its shadow. The cubs had begun to follow her movements with eerie intelligence, responding to her voice. "You understand, don't you?" she whispered once. The larger one tilted its head. "You just want to live." They reminded her of herself, alone, stranded, surviving on instinct. Humanity had come to this world centuries ago, taming deserts and seas, but never learning mercy toward the native predators. Lyra had always argued they could coexist. Now she had living proof wrapped in her coat. On the fourth day, the horizon shimmered with movement, metal glints against the ice. For a moment, she thought it was rescue craft. Then her pulse quickened for a different reason. The glints weren't friendly. They were hunters' colonial recon units. Their banners bore the red insignia of TARC, 7 Defense Command. They'd been clearing the tundra of Felidons for years, claiming it was for settler safety. But Lyra knew the truth. Their biotech labs used Felidon neural tissue for military implants. And now, those soldiers would see her carrying live cubs, the perfect specimens. She crouched low, clutching the sling close. The cubs squirmed as sensors swept overhead. She whispered, "Stay quiet." The beam passed within meters, illuminating the frost around her, then moved on. Lyra waited until the sound faded before exhaling. She knew what she had to do. Reach the old observatory on the ridge. Its underground vaults could mask life signatures. The trek there would take another day. But if she could transmit a data burst with her research logs, she might convince the Planetary Council to halt exterminations entirely. That night, she reached the ridge under starlight. The cubs climbed free from the sling, padding curiously around her boots. They played in the snow, if play was the right word, biting gently at her gloves. She smiled tiredly and knelt beside them. "You're going to live," she whispered. "And maybe they'll learn to see you as more than beasts." Inside the observatory, silence reigned. Broken lenses lay scattered across the floor. She powered the old terminal with the last of her battery pack and began the upload, her field notes, environmental readings, the footage of the cubs. Data bars crept upward, slow as sunrise. When she heard the hum of engines outside, her stomach dropped. A patrol drone had followed her thermal trail. The door exploded inward. 3 armored soldiers stormed inside, rifles raised. "Step away from the console," one barked. Lyra lifted her hands. The cubs hissed from behind a crate, their scales flaring bright blue. "They're not weapons," she shouted. "They're children." The lead soldier sneered. "Orders are clear. Terminate non-human predators and anyone harboring them." He fired. The shot hit the floor beside her, scattering dust. The cubs lunged. One bit through his gauntlet before a second blast sent it tumbling. Lyra screamed, diving between them, shielding the surviving cub with her body. "Stop. They're intelligent." Something in her tone, raw, desperate, made the youngest soldier hesitate. "Lieutenant," he muttered, "they're just cubs." "Silence," the officer snapped, raising his weapon again. Before he could fire, the terminal beeped, the upload complete. Lyra slammed her palm onto the transmit key. A pulse of blue light surged upward, piercing the clouds. Every satellite, every orbital relay would receive her message now, the proof that Felidons could trust, bond, feel. The officer cursed and fired. The blast caught her shoulder, spinning her backward. Pain flared through her body, but she stayed conscious long enough to see the remaining cub crawl to her side, pressing its small head against her hand. Its bioluminescence pulsed faintly, matching her heartbeat. She smiled through the blood. "It's okay. You'll live now." Then everything went dark. Days later, across orbit, the transmission reached the Planetary Council chambers. Hollow screens flickered with images, a human woman holding 2 alien cubs beneath a torn coat, audio of her voice describing empathy, coexistence, and the madness of extermination. The footage spread faster than officials could contain it. Civilians demanded change. Scientists demanded ethics. Soldiers, quietly, refused new orders. The extermination campaign was halted within the week. Months later, explorers returned to the tundra.